Hi, I'm Commander Rich DiGiacomo, and I'm the author of the new Royal Ranger Merit, the Family Gamer Merit. As you can see, I have a pretty big collection of games. I've been gaming ever since I was a kid, and I even write and design games. This is going to be an exciting new merit for Royal Rangers to learn about how to make games, how to play games, how to be a good sport, and how to balance our time appropriately when gaming. So let's jump right in with lesson number 1. Family Gaming Merit has a lot of fun and exciting activities that your boys are sure to enjoy. For example, we will learn about the importance of good sportsmanship and following the rules when playing games. We will discuss how to choose games that are age appropriate and free from objectionable content. We'll discuss the importance of balancing playing time with other activities and responsibilities in life. Then we're going to play each one of the different types of games that exist. And then there's a choice of activities that you can do, such as going to a game tournament or event, researching the history of a game, modifying the rules of a game, reading about tips to become a better player in your favorite game, or even hosting a family game night for your church or outpost. And then finally, and probably most fun of all, you're going to create a game of your own. Family Gaming Merit Lesson 1, you want to use the part of your leader's guide entitled Learning About Family Games. Games can be a fun activity as long as they are played within certain guidelines. They are a fun way to get away from life's challenges and difficulties for a while. They can be an important social activity that can build relationships. Games seem to be a part of basic human nature. Games have been played in nearly every culture in the world. Games have been around since ancient times. The Bible mentions games involving casting dice, races, and other contests. Games from around the world, or games that have been around for centuries, such as Go, Mancala, Parcheesi, Senet, or chess. It's very important when conducting games to exercise good sportsmanship. This is an important skill that boys need to learn from this merit. Good sportsmanship means that you should be a good player that treats other players fairly and kindly in order to focus on having a good time. Some good behaviors for gamers include knowing and following the rules. Every gamer should be familiar with the rules of a game before engaging in it. If you don't know the rules, ask someone to teach you or play something else that you already know. Being patient with new players that are just learning the game. Just because you know the game doesn't mean everyone else does, so you've got to be a little understanding and give them a chance to catch up. Instead of being critical, be helpful. Remembering that it is more important to have a good time than to win. Sometimes people get a little too competitive and forget that it's really about having fun, not who wins. Maintaining friendly relationships with everyone. You want to keep your friends so they want to game with you again. Keeping your attention on the game and not being distracted by other activities instead of taking your turn. A good player stays focused and keeps their head in the game so that they keep the game moving along and the game is fun and entertaining. Otherwise, the game can drag on and not be very fun at all. And finally, doing your fair share of setting up and putting away the game. Good sportsmanship includes all of the setup of the game and the cleanup and putting it away. Unfortunately, some gamers exhibit bad behaviors. These include not knowing or following the rules. Nothing is more frustrating than someone who doesn't know what they're doing when they're playing a game and drags everybody else down, slowing down the game or even ruining it. Cheating. There's really two kinds of cheaters. There's some people who do it because they think it's funny or entertaining, and they will purposely mess around with the rules, steal money, joke around, and do things wrong, but they're really not funny and nobody else enjoys the experience, and they can really ruin a game. The second kind of cheater is someone that does it deliberately because they feel insecure that they can't win the game. These are the worst kind of cheaters. They may feel like they're gaining something by winning the game, but they really are going to alienate their friends and possibly ruin the game, and they don't really gain anything from cheating. Some people really like to win, and their problem is they are overly competitive. Winning is fine. Winning is a good goal. But when you want to win so bad that you treat other players badly or become overly aggressive in a game, it can really ruin the gaming experience for everyone else. And if you do it enough, people are not going to want to play with you anymore. The next one is constantly arguing over the rules. In the gamer community, this is known as rules lawyering. It's a really annoying habit. Now, if something is seriously wrong and it's going to disrupt the game and you discover that everybody is doing things wrong and it's not the right way to play the game, that's fine to bring up the rules. But some people are constantly referring to the rules and it just drives everybody crazy. Did you know on page 135 it says you're supposed to do such and such? Well, according to the second edition, it says this and that, and they just drive everybody crazy during the game. So you have to keep a balance of, yes, refer to the rules when necessary, but don't constantly argue over the rules. It'll just ruin the game. Unfortunately, online especially, some people have gotten very aggressive in their gaming. They make a habit of belittling other players. Oh, you're a noob. Oh, you're so stupid. Boy, what a rookie error. And this has become a really persistent problem with online gaming. They make fun of other players, they insult them, they curse at them, they say really inappropriate things about them. They act like they're very superior and I'm the expert on this game and I'm going to school you on how to win. And this is a really aggressive and annoying behavior. It's very condescending and it really makes people dislike you intensely. This is one of the worst gaming behaviors there is out there, and I highly recommend to not emulate it or you're going to really alienate people and no one is going to want to play with you. Another bad habit is quitting a game too early and leaving everyone else unable to complete the game without you. Some people perennially start a game that they know they don't have enough time to play and then they leave. And this can really ruin the game. Some games are only able to be played if everyone plays it to the conclusion. So if you leave early, someone might have to substitute for you, or it might just ruin the game entirely, and everyone will get frustrated because they put all this time into the game and it's not possible to tell who won. So please do not play a game unless you're sure you have enough time to play it through to the end and not leave early and mess up the game for everybody else. And then for the one we've all heard about, people being a sore loser. Some people quit a game or complain that it's not fair because you think you're not going to win. This is just another form of insecurity and immaturity. Nobody wants to play with a sore loser. You cheated. That's not right. I don't want to play with you people anymore. It sounds very childish and selfish, and it's a quick way to alienate everybody and make no one want to play with you again. Another one is constantly having to be reminded to pay attention to how the game is going or take your turn because you have your attention on the phone, the television, or some other distraction. I mean, naturally all games have some kind of lull in them, but you really need to stay focused and pay attention to what's going on in the game and not have to be reminded by everybody else, hey, it's your turn, wake up, roll the dice, take your turn. Or, you lost your pieces or you don't have the money or whatever it is. You don't know what's going on and you do something stupid because you don't pay attention to the game. That really annoys other players and it's a way to make people not want to play with you as well. Some people are not very respectful of other people's game components. They try to eat around the game, they spill food or liquid on it, they get grubby fingers all over everything, and they can ruin the game. They can wrinkle up money or other important cards or things. They can bend the board or break pieces. You should always treat a game like it's your own game and keep it nice and neat and clean so it can be played for many years to come. And the last one is leaving the game and not offering to help someone else put the pieces away. Some people are disgusted because they didn't win and they were really competitive or something like that, and they just make excuses and walk away and leave the game host to clean up everything by themselves. It's really fun and enjoyable to host a game, but nobody wants to sit there for an hour putting pieces away after everybody else split in a hurry. In this lesson, we're going to go over requirements number 2 and requirements number 4. Requirement number 2, you are to discuss how to choose games that are age appropriate and free from objectionable content. In requirement number 4, play a game from one of the following categories with your family or group. So pick a different game than the one that you did the first week. Pick one from a different category and play that at some time during the week. For requirement number 2, refer to the section of your leader's guide entitled Learning About Family Games. Go to the section called Choosing Appropriate Games. It is very important to choose a game that is appropriate for the age of the players involved. A game that is too advanced will frustrate young or inexperienced players that may feel confused or lost. A game that is too easy will be boring for older or more experienced players. Choose a game that fits your current group of players well. I can't emphasize that enough. Many people make the mistake of trying to force a difficult game on young players, or playing a game that everyone knows and it's too simple and it isn't fun either. Choose a game that fits your current group of players well. If necessary, switch to a game that is more equitable for players of different ability or experience levels. You may also split up into a beginners and experienced players' games. Read the box and rules carefully to determine how complex the game is in advance. Try to get at least one player that has played the game before or has read the rulebook in advance. If necessary, ignore a few rules or change them to accommodate inexperienced players, as long as everybody agrees to those changes in advance and you announce it to everyone. I highly recommend that you never sit and read the entire rules aloud to everyone. That is very boring and they won't remember any of it. People don't really pay attention to when you sit there and read the rules. It's better if one player reads the rules in advance and is prepared to host the game. It's better to try the game out a little at a time. Perhaps you could play a practice round before going on and refer to the rules as you go along. Many rules have sample turns and lots of examples of how the game works built into the rule book, so by all means read those and use those and practice things before you get into the real game. It's also important to determine how long the game will take to play in advance and make sure all the players have time to stay until the end. It's better to play a shorter game that everyone understands than a long, complicated game that no one fully understands or enjoys. When choosing games, avoid any games that may conflict with a Christian lifestyle. We don't want to play any games that are going to drag people down or be a stumbling block to others. This would include any games that contain the following: drug, alcohol, or tobacco use. We do not want to encourage those dangerous behaviors. Glorifying criminal activity. We shouldn't be playing games that include murder or theft or any other kind of activity that would glamorize people in organized crime or those that victimize others. We certainly don't want to play any games that have sexual content in them. We should avoid games that have profanity, any kind of cursing, or inappropriate language. We shouldn't be playing games that encourage gambling or idolizing that lifestyle. Definitely do not want to play any games that have occult references, anything related to excessive magic, witchcraft, or satanic practices. We should avoid games that have excessive violence. Most games that have conflict have some form of killing in them, but there's no reason for a game to have blood and gore, dwell on the blood and the violence, and glorify it. We don't want to play any games that have racial stereotypes or prejudices in them. And finally, we don't want to play any games that have anything sacrilegious or disrespectful to Christianity. There should be nothing in the game that contradicts our beliefs or makes fun of Christianity or the Bible in any way. As a rule, use your best judgment and use the standard, what would Jesus do? If you don't think he would be comfortable watching you play the game, or if it might cause someone else to stumble in his walk or her walk with Jesus, to see you play it, it's best to avoid it. This can be found in Romans chapter 14, verses 13 through 19. This is a good standard to use at any time when trying to decide whether to play a game alone or with others. It is important to use godly wisdom and discernment when choosing your games. Ask yourself, is this game just entertainment? Is it just fun? Or is it going to change me in some way? Is it going to encourage some kind of bad behavior that is not good for my character? Is it going to make me a poor witness to others? Now, this is entirely a personal decision. We shouldn't judge other people's gaming choices. This is something between us and the Holy Spirit to guide us. If a game is going to drag us down make us into a different kind of person, get us into bad behaviors that we normally wouldn't do, that's not a healthy game for us to play. Perhaps you may feel that you can handle a game, but if you introduce it to another Christian, it might weaken their faith. Or if you spend too much time gaming with non-believers, you may find yourself dragged into profanity or glorifying behaviors that are not pleasing to God. Use your wisdom, use your discernment, and pray about it. And if a game is bad for your Christian lifestyle, it's probably best to eliminate it and find something better to play. Family Gamer Merit Lesson Number 3. So, begin with the section Get Them Thinking. Ask them the following questions. What did you enjoy the most about the game that we played last week? What did you learn from it? In this lesson, we're going to cover requirements number 3 and requirement number 4. Number 3 says discuss the importance of balancing playing time with other activities and responsibilities in life. Requirement 4 is play at least one game from each of the following categories with your family or group. So pick a different category than the one you did last week and play a game from that at some point during this week. For Lesson 3, refer to the section of the Leader's Guide entitled Learning About Family Games. Go to the section entitled Keeping Game Time in Balance. Discuss the importance of balancing playing time with other activities and responsibilities in life. Games are fun, but it is important to remember that they are only a recreational activity. Games should never come before your church, schoolwork, family responsibilities, duties, sleep, or exercise requirements. Some people are having serious problems these days with addiction to gaming. All you have to do is look at the news to hear of extreme cases where young people have become so involved with gaming that they seem to forget about all of life's priorities. They get so caught up in gaming that they can't seem to quit. They get very annoyed with anyone that tries to make them stop. It is affecting their schoolwork and relationships. They are getting insufficient sleep and nutrition. Some people have even lost their jobs or failed classes in school because they are spending too much time on gaming or doing it at inappropriate times. It is important to remember the expression, "it is only a game," and limit gaming to an appropriate amount of time in our lives. Researchers have said that games trigger that part of the brain that is the same as a reward when we have done an actual accomplishment. So if we're building a city or taking over an empire or becoming the biggest real estate broker in Monopoly or something like that, we think we're really accomplishing something, but we're not. In our quest to achieve the top score or be the winner of the tournament or be the most impressive online player or something like that, we might accidentally be hurting our schoolwork, our careers, and our relationships with others. We have to remember that it's just a game and keep it in the proper perspective. When used correctly, games can be a lot of fun. When overdone, they can become a dangerous obsession that could even be life-threatening. Recently, educational psychologists, school officials, and counselors have recognized gaming addiction as a real addiction. It can be just as serious as alcohol or drug abuse. If you are a boy and you have found yourself overly involved with gaming, you need to take a good hard look at your life. Has your personality changed because of gaming? Are you struggling in school? Has gaming become more important to you than anything else? Is it hurting your relationship with your parents, with your friends? Is it causing you to spend less time in God's Word and at church activities? Is it disrupting your sleep? Are you not eating right or having difficulty in school? It's time to get things back in balance. Games are fun, but they're not everything. And it doesn't please God or help others if we're so involved in our gaming that we're not taking care of life's responsibilities and having good relationships with others. Ask the Lord to help you to choose the right games and to manage your time more wisely so you can keep up with your responsibilities and do gaming in a healthy and fun way. If you are a parent and you're struggling with your child's game addiction, you need to get help. Don't try to deny the problem or think that it's something that will go away with time as a child matures. It may or may not go away with time. Seek some counseling from a pastor or a Christian counselor experienced in this area. Unchecked, gaming addiction can destroy a young person's life. It can cause them to fail school, be unable to hold a job, and seriously impede their education and social relationships. It needs to be taken seriously, and it needs to be dealt with just like any other addiction. Family Gamer Merit Lesson 4. Start out by using the Get Them Thinking activity. Ask the boys which of the games that we've played so far have you enjoyed the most. And then ask them which type of game do you think are the most enjoyable and why. So for this lesson we're going to do requirement number 5, and there's a variety of activities that you can choose to do as a group, and continue to do requirement 4, where we're going to play at least one game from each of the following categories with your family or group. So do one or more during this week and make sure they're different categories than the ones that you've done before. Requirement number 5 gives you lots of fun choices in order to fulfill this requirement. So you only need to do one of the following. A is attend or participate in a gaming club event or tournament. B, research and describe the origins of a popular game, explaining who created it, how it was developed, and how it may have changed over time. You may be surprised to learn that there's actually lots of books written about games. They tell you the story of who invented it, how it was developed, and give you strategies for how to become a better player. There are also many websites that do the same thing. C, modify the rules of an existing game to make it playable for a different age group, language, or ability level. So take a game that you're already pretty familiar with and decide in what ways you'd like to modify the game. Maybe you want to make a junior version or an advanced version. Maybe you want to do some sort of add-on to the game or expansion set. Maybe you want to translate the game into a language that has never had that game in that language before. Maybe you want to make a different ability level. There are lots of fun ways you can add new pieces or new cards. Start with a basic game and then adapt it. D, read a book or website that has tips for how to become a better player in your favorite game. There are many books and websites that do this. And finally, E, host a family game night for your church or outpost. Invite members of the community to attend. This can be a fantastic outreach for your church. It might get new boys to join your outpost. For Lesson 4, Requirement 5, refer to the section of Leader's Guide, Learning About Family Games. Go down to the section about game gatherings and modifying games. Let's do game gatherings first. Many fans of popular games like to congregate in game clubs, tournaments, or game conventions to try their skills against other players. So see if there's a gaming club at your school that plays a particular game that you like. There might be a local club in the community at a community center or rec center. There are also periodically tournaments that might come to cities nearby, and game conventions. These can be a great place to learn playing tips, to try out or purchase new games, to meet fellow gamers, or even win prizes for winning a game. They may focus around a single game or offer many different kinds of games at once. Game enthusiasts are often eager to find new players for their favorite games and are very helpful about explaining the rules to new players. I've been to many gaming conventions over the years. Some of them are quite simple and some are quite complex and have thousands of participants. Sometimes they focus around a particular game that everyone knows and it's their favorite game, and they have some sort of tournament with prizes. Other times they have a wide variety of games. I've seen game conventions that have everything from simple games of checkers all the way up to extremely complicated war games. Over the years, this has become more and more of a family activity as women and children join men and play games of all different kinds. It's now common at game conventions to see people of all different ages and backgrounds. It's a great place to go if you have a new game and you don't quite understand how to play it, or you're having trouble finding players. Go to a game convention, chances are there are already people there who have played that game, and you can either find a scheduled event or there are often open gaming tables where you can just sit down and start a game with whoever drops in. Usually these game conventions include some sort of seminars where people will explain games, introduce new games that are coming out from publishers, or offer tips to players on how to become a better player. Sometimes you even get to meet the person who invented the game. I've seen interesting demonstrations of how game components were made, or rules were created, or the historical background behind a game, or many other things. It's often a great place to learn how to become a better player. There are really good players there, and they are usually very eager to teach people about their favorite game. Sometimes you might find a newer version of the game, or expansion sets, or new components. Frequently, these game conventions have an exhibit hall where there are vendors that sell the games, and you can buy new games, expansion sets, components, pieces, new types of army men, dice, cards, all sorts of things, gaming mats, even gaming furniture, and things where you can set up a really fancy gaming room. There are now a wide variety of online gaming platforms as well. There are apps for particular games, both the classics and new games. And there are online gaming apps such as Tabletop Simulator and many others where you can go online and meet other players and play a virtual version of the game. It could be everything, including simple common board games, social games such as word games, Jeopardy, and even role-playing games and strategy games. The nice thing about these kind of online platforms is you don't have to physically set up the game, move the pieces around, or clean them up. Oftentimes the pieces are virtual and right there on the screen for you, and you can gather together people from all around the world to play a game together, and the turns can be recorded, the pieces can be saved, the game can even be started up at another time when everyone schedules a different time to. A word of caution should be given about online gaming. They can be really fun, and it can be exciting to meet players from all around the world and play at different times. But there are some people that do not really follow the rules to the games. They're intended to be family gaming platforms, but sometimes they are not very well moderated, and people will use inappropriate behavior and language in the chat rooms of these games. So be advised of that. If you come across players that use inappropriate language or say inappropriate things, politely ask them not to, and if they refuse to, quit the game and play with somebody else. There's always plenty of other good players to find. If it gets really bad, there's usually some way to report players who abuse the rules, and they can be kicked off the gaming platform. One option that gamers like to do is called modding. Modifying games. Some people like to change the rules of a game to fit their desires or to adapt it to a different kind of player. Sometimes they like to expand an older game to a different set of circumstances or special rules to make it fresh or more challenging. These modifications are known as mods. This can be done with a conventional board game, card game, or a computer game. A set of special rules designed by someone are known as homebrew rules. As long as everyone agrees on the mods or homebrew rules in advance, this can add an interesting twist to the game. Many published games come out with special editions which are in different language, so there might be an Italian Scrabble or French or German or Spanish. They might commemorate an event or a place, so there could be, instead of just Monopoly, New York City Monopoly or something like that. Or they could be tied to the theme of a book or a movie. Sometimes they release a special junior or more advanced edition to recruit different levels of players. Sometimes they add expansion sets to an existing game to introduce new and exciting challenges to previous players. There are websites that feature mods, homebrew rules, and expansions for just about any game imaginable. Gamer Merit Lesson 5. We've come to the big one. So, in this lesson plan, you're going to start out by doing the Get Them Thinking activity. Ask your Rangers, have you ever created your own game? And what was it like? I think we've all been in a situation at one point or another where we wish we could change the rules to a game. Some of the best games ever made were made by people that just started experimenting with a familiar game and made a few changes here and there. So, in this activity, my favorite of the merit, you're going to get to make your own game. So requirement number 6 says, create a simple game for 1 to 4 players, make or gather all the necessary game pieces or equipment, and explain the rules and how to play. Then play the game with your family or group. And then finally, as usual, we're going to continue to finish up requirement number 4 and make sure that the Rangers have played at least one game from each category in requirement number 4. Lesson 5, we're going to refer to learning about family games, the final section. We'll go to the section that says creating a game. Game design can be fun and rewarding. Some people even make money by selling the game's mods or game components that they design. There are many careers available to those who design games, make the artwork, pieces, boards, cards, write the rules, or test them out. Others have jobs selling or hosting games. So what you want to do is most likely make this a group project where boys in a patrol or rangers in a small group will design a game together. It can be done individually if you have more advanced boys that want to take on the challenge, but it's probably best to take advantage of different ranger skills and have them do this as a group activity. So when they put together a game, there's a checklist here of things that they need to include. First of all, did you give the game a catchy name that reflects the nature of the game? So every game needs a name, but make sure it's a good name that will explain what the game is about and will sound like something fun to play. Next thing you need to do is make sure that you state how many players there are in the game. You don't want it to be too many because it's a good idea to be able to play the game there in the outpost. So usually somewhere between 1 to 4 players is a good idea. The next thing on the checklist is asking, are there markers to represent each player or other game components? So there should be some kind of game marker or min or something like that to be pieces to be used in the game. Next thing is, have you explained how your players will move around the board? Will you use dice, a spinner, cards, etc.? So if it's going to be a traditional board game, there has to be some way to move around. So there might be movement cards, you might roll dice, spinner, cards, things like that. Remind the boys when they're writing the rules that a singular die is called one die and a pair is called dice. That's a common mistake that they make when they're designing games. Make sure that they actually provide these pieces and that they're there for the players to use on the night that they're tested out. Are there some kind of cards in the game that represent possessions, like properties in Monopoly or something else? Accomplishments that you've reached, like getting to the end space. There should be a good balance of good and bad events that can happen to players. Things that are setbacks that they have to overcome, but not too difficult so that they're knocked out of the game or can't play anymore. And then there's some beneficial things that help them move ahead on the board or towards their goals. Make sure it's a good balance so there's not too many good and too many bad and the game plays well. Is there some kind of money system in the game? If so, did you make enough of it to make the game playable without running out of it? So this is a common mistake that people will make when they design a game. They say that there's money in the game, but they don't actually make enough of the money to do it. So how are they going to do that? Are they going to print them out and cut them up? Or is it something that can be done on a calculator or something like that? But make sure that there's enough money actually available and that the money system makes sense. Did you add special events that add an equal number of advantages and obstacles to the player, such as lose a turn, roll again, gain or lose money, go back 2 spaces, move to a certain space, gain or lose something? So it should always be balanced so it's not unfair. It gives one player an unfair advantage over another. If there's possessions in the game, do the possessions in the game go up in value? If so, how do you keep track of their value? So like in Monopoly, you're building houses and hotels and they're going up in value as there on the card. Is this going to be in your rules somewhere? Is it displayed somehow? Do the pieces show when there's an upgrade? Are there ways to improve upon the possessions? So it'd be like the equivalent of houses and hotels in Monopoly. If you're going to have some sort of improvement to your possessions, how do you show that? How do you keep track of that? Is there a little card, a chart, money, pieces? How are you going to do that? This one is very important. Are the rules clear and easy to understand? Just because you designed the game doesn't mean that everybody else can understand it. So it's very important to have the boys show the rules to somebody else that did not design that game. So if you have more than one group, have them play each other's games and test them out. And then stop them, have them show them to the commanders parents, whoever, and say, does this make sense? Do you know what to do? Is it clear what you're supposed to do in any given circumstance? Did you proofread them to eliminate spelling and grammar errors? We want this game to look nice and professional and not have bad grammar and spelling that makes it confusing for the players to know what to do. Have you thought about what to do if special circumstances arise? So you have to actually test your own game out several times and play it and say, oh, well, we forgot to say how you finish, or we forgot to say what happens if a player is knocked out of the game, or things like that. Have you anticipated what kinds of questions and clarifications the players may ask about the rules? So it's really a good idea to, if you have more than one group, have the Rangers switch games with each other, play each other's games, and ask questions like, I don't get this. What do we do when this happens? How are we supposed to resolve this? How do you win this thing? Are there special rules for contests or combat that need to be explained? So if there's going to be some kind of competition or combat, you need to explain those rules very carefully. How do you match up the opponents? Is there some sort of odds system? Is there a combat chart? Is there some sort of die roll that has to be achieved to win or something like that? Are there cards that have to be played? How is that resolved? And what happens to a player that loses? And what happens to a player that wins? Did you provide a couple of sample turn examples in the rules? This is very, very helpful to new players to understand the game. So make sure you put in a couple of sample turns. When you build, you do this. When you fight, you do that. In order to win, you have to look like this. Give them examples along the way so they know how to play the game. Did you clearly explain how the game ends and how a winner is determined? You can have the greatest game in the world, but if you don't explain to the players how they win, it's not going to be very fun to play. It's going to be very frustrating for people. So you need to clearly say, to be a winner, you have to reach this level. You have to have this amount of money or get to this place. You have to beat all the other opponents, or, if nothing else, just say the game ends after a certain amount of time or at a certain level. I actually have a lot of experience in game design. I started out as a kid modding games, and then as a teacher, I designed several games and published games for social studies educators. So I have a lot of good tips for you on how to make games. First thing you need to do is when your Rangers are designing a game is you need to find some pieces. So you can go through your game cabinet at home and find old games that are incomplete and sort of rob pieces from there if you need to. It's also easy to go to garage sales and thrift stores and find relatively inexpensive used games and take components out of there. Good gaming stores or online gaming supply places also have game pieces that are similar to many family games, and you can find replacement dice and markers and little men and things like that you can use for games. You can also design your own. You can make them out of ordinary objects like buttons and thimbles and all sorts of things like that, where you can make your own pieces. As far as money, it's pretty easy to design something on your own that you can print up and cut out with a paper cutter or something like that, or put them on business card stock or something like that. I got a kick out of my students one year decided to make the Giacomo bucks for their board game and put my picture on them. You also need to think about designing the board and the box. You want to put the game in something where all of the pieces easily fit and the board, so you might want to encourage your boys to make a game that fits in a pizza box or some other readily available size box, like something from the post office. Make sure the board is good and sturdy and isn't really flimsy. Make sure that it's something that'll lay flat, so they might need to use thick cardboard or glue it down onto a thicker piece of board. It doesn't have to be too permanent, but you don't want it to be something that'll curl up or won't lay flat. Make sure the board is big enough for everybody to play and all the pieces fit and everybody can sit comfortably around a table to play it. Writing rules is really, really important. They have to have good spelling and grammar. They have to be short and simple and understandable. And they need to follow every possible contingency that the players never get lost and are confused about what to do next. So when you write the rules, write them, rewrite them, proofread them, show them to other people, rewrite them again and again until they're very, very clear. You might want to actually break up the group into people of different talents, because you might have a ranger who's good at artwork and they can do the graphic components of the game. You might have another one that's good at writing that can do the rules or the editing. Another one that makes the pieces, things like that. Split up the things so that everybody's got a separate job and it's all being done equitably. It's very important to keep the game simple. This has to be something that should be played in an hour or less. It should be easy to understand the rules. So if you see some of your overachiever rangers starting to make a game that's too complex or too hard on the players, you got to get them to tamp that down a little bit and say, look, this thing's got to be something simple that anybody can pick up and understand and be played in a relatively short amount of time. So nobody wants to play a game with complex rules where nobody can win and nobody enjoys it. And that leads to the most important thing. The game needs to be fun. If it isn't fun, nobody's ever going to play it. So don't make it overly complicated or too hard to win. It's not the goal to try to trick everybody and defeat everybody. It's to have fun. So number one thing is the game's got to be fun, as well as, of course, being understandable. I can't emphasize enough how important playtesting is. You've got to get other people to try your game out. Show it to mom and dad. Show it to your commander. Have other people in the group play it. Play it as many times as possible before you actually have it played before the outpost, and it's evaluated at the final time. And then you might want to think about, how are you going to publish this? Are you going to have like a game night where everybody brings their games and exchanges them? If so, who gets the game when you're done? You might want to gift it to the church or keep it in the outpost. You may want to donate it to a library or a kids club. You may actually, if it's good enough, seriously consider publishing it and printing it up and making copies and selling it as a fundraiser for the outpost. Thanks for joining me in this brief introduction to this fun new merit. I hope you and your boys enjoy it.